Every story that begins with death is really about memory, and every haunting begins with someone who cannot forget. Beetlejuice Beetlejuice opens like a ghost story retold by a trickster where grief and laughter share the same breath. The film reaches backward into the myth of Winter River and forward into the peculiar present of Lydia Dietz, who once made peace with the dead but never quite found it among the living. She has grown into a woman who sells her own fears as entertainment, yet still fears the silence between applause. The world she inhabits is both familiar and unsettling. It mirrors the first film's gothic warmth, but there's a melancholy undercurrent, a sense that the dead have not been resting quietly. Somewhere below the ground, something with a striped suit and a smirk sharpens its wit. The ghost with the most has been waiting for his cue, and life, or what passes for it, is about to give him one. This retelling walks through the movie step by step without crossing the boundary of its ending. It follows Lydia, her daughter Astrid, and her mother Delia through their return to Winter River and the slow reopening of the door between the living and the dead. It examines Beetlejuice not just as a villain, but as a symptom of everything unresolved: grief, guilt, and the irresistible pull of chaos. Each section flows into the next through brief, atmospheric transitions, creating a literary seance that blurs memory with imagination. The film begins with rain, because everything important in Lydia's life begins with weather. She arrives at her childhood home for her father's funeral, clutching an umbrella too elegant for mud. Astrid, her teenage daughter, trails behind her with headphones mooting the eulogies. Delia, magnificent in mourning attire that looks suspiciously like an art installation, narrates the service to anyone within earshot. Grief is private for Lydia, performative for Delia, and optional for Astrid. That contrast becomes the story's heartbeat: three women connected by love, separated by belief. Inside the old Dietz home, the walls seem to remember their former tenants. Photographs warp at the edges, the staircase sighs when stepped upon, and the attic door trembles as if breathing. Lydia catches herself glancing upward. The house, in its way, is glad she has returned. Somewhere behind plaster and paint, echoes of the Maitlands still move politely aside. The air smells of damp wood and unfinished business. Outside, the rain weakens, but the unease remains. The moon peers through thin clouds like an eye too curious to blink. A wind rises and whispers through the shutters, carrying the faintest laugh from somewhere that should be empty. The house inhales and waits for someone to make the next mistake. In the world beyond Winter River, Lydia Dietz has become an unlikely celebrity. She hosts a show about hauntings where each episode ends with her assuring viewers that ghosts are just another form of storytelling. The fame is comfortable, the irony is constant, and every camera flash feels like judgment. Lydia's success is built on turning the unbelievable into spectacle, yet the performance wears her thin. She still dreams of the Maitlands, of their kindness, and of that one name she swore never to say again. Astrid, growing up in Lydia's shadow, has learned to distrust everything supernatural. She sees her mother's fame as proof of hypocrisy, someone who insists ghosts are real while pretending they're fiction for ratings. Lydia cannot explain that both things are true. Her mother Delia finds this contradiction delightful, bragging that they've become a family brand of eccentric sincerity. Beneath the jokes, however, they are still haunted by success, by silence, and by each other. When night falls over the Dietz house, the lights dim as if obeying an old ritual. Outside, mist crawls along the ground, curling into the shape of question marks before vanishing. The attic, quiet for years, begins to remember it was once the center of a haunting. Curiosity in the Dietz family is practically genetic. Astrid, bored with condolences and silence, ignores her mother's warnings and climbs the attic stairs. The door creaks open like a throat clearing before confession. Inside, the miniature town of Winter River waits under a blanket of dust. The lights within the model still glow faintly, powered by nothing Lydia can explain. Astrid traces the tiny streets with her fingertip and finds her name scrawled in chalk beside another she does not recognize. On a shelf, she discovers her mother's old notebooks, filled with sketches of gravestones and the word Beetlejuice written again and again. To Astrid, it looks like a brand of madness. She whispers it once, amused. The air cools. She whispers it again, testing her disbelief. The third time arrives like a dare to the universe. The model town shudders, its miniature trees shaking. Somewhere deep in the floorboards, something stirs and laughs. Downstairs, every clock stops. A portrait tilts slightly on its nail. In the attic, the dust dances as if applauding. The name has been spoken, and the joke no one wanted to hear is about to tell itself again. Beetlejuice's return is equal parts horror and comedy. The attic bursts open with color and noise as reality itself bends to accommodate his entrance. The miniature town expands and collapses in rhythm with his voice. He steps out of shadow like a magician who never learned restraint, brushing cobwebs off his striped suit. His grin is the same, too wide, too knowing, too alive for the dead. He greets Lydia as if no time has passed, mocking her adulthood and congratulating her on surviving this long without him. The attic becomes a theater of his ego, furniture pirouettes, wallpaper peels into applause, and portraits stretch into spectators. Lydia, shaking, demands that he leave. Beetlejuice bows instead. He has been invited, and invitations have consequences. Silence follows his laughter like thunder follows lightning. The temperature drops, the shadows lengthen, and somewhere below, Delia dreams of sculptures that dance on their own. Lydia tries to contain the haunting by pretending it isn't happening. She locks the attic door, hides her notebooks, and forbids Astrid to go upstairs. Delia, delighted by the drama, turns the whole event into inspiration for her next installation, Domestic Phantasmagoria. Astrid, now certain her mother is keeping secrets, begins investigating on her own. Beetlejuice, meanwhile, whispers from mirrors and air vents, feeding everyone exactly what they want to hear. The tension explodes during dinner. Lydia warns her mother to stop using haunted imagery in her art. Delia accuses her of jealousy. Astrid calls them both frauds. The argument rattles the chandelier. When it falls, shattering harmlessly, Beetlejuice laughs from nowhere. He thanks them for setting the mood. The pieces of the chandelier continue to twitch on the floor, rearranging themselves into the shape of a grin. Outside, the fog thickens until even the moon looks nervous. Determined to stop the chaos, Lydia reopens the portal to the afterlife. The waiting room she once stumbled through as a teenager now stretches endlessly, its walls lined with holographic windows showing thousands of confused souls. Clerks with decomposed smiles stamp papers that never seem to end. Lydia approaches the counter, demanding to know how Beetlejuice could have returned. The clerk consults a glowing tablet and shrugs. His exile expired, no one renewed the banishment order, and cosmic paperwork. Meanwhile, Beetlejuice revels in his newfound freedom. He doesn't just haunt the Dietz house, he begins haunting the town. Gravestones spin like carnival rides, streetlights flicker with green fire, and every reflection holds an extra figure grinning in the corner. Winter River becomes the world's most stylishly cursed postcard. Back in the house, Delia sketches the chaos with trembling hands. She tells herself she is documenting history, not losing her mind. The pen moves on its own, tracing stripes across the page. What began as mischief curdles into malice. Delia's sculptures sprout limbs and crawl across the floors. Astrid's phone lights up with calls from her deceased grandfather. Lydia wakes to find her old photographs rearranged into warnings. Beetlejuice delights in every scream, conducting the haunting like an orchestra. The house pulses with energy, half laughter, half heartbeat. The townspeople mistake the disturbances for art installations and flock to the property. Delia basks in the attention until the sculptures begin mimicking the guests' movements. Panic erupts. Beetlejuice materializes among them, wearing a grin wide enough to split the world. When the police arrive, he tips his hat and vanishes into smoke, leaving behind applause that nobody joins. When dawn breaks, the lawn is littered with footprints that lead nowhere. The wind hums a tune too jaunty for tragedy. The Dietz women retreat indoors, but the house is already breathing in their fear. Astrid begins seeing ghosts without Beetlejuice's help. The first is a young girl who died decades ago, still playing hide and seek between realities. The second is a reflection of herself in a mirror that does not mimic her movements. These encounters strip away disbelief. She understands that her mother was not delusional, only burdened by truth. She confronts Lydia, demanding partnership instead of protection. Their reconciliation is tentative but sincere. Lydia admits that she once made a bargain. Why? Astrid realizes that Beetlejuice preys on loneliness disguised as curiosity. She vows they will not feed him anymore. Together, they begin studying Lydia's old journals for clues. The ghosts of the Maitlands appear briefly, gentle as ever, guiding them toward understanding rather than revenge. For the first time, Lydia feels that maybe the dead are not punishing her, they are preparing her. The house settles for a moment as if satisfied. Then the attic door creaks open again on its own, proving peace is only ever an intermission. Beetlejuice unveils his plan with the flair of a showman. He claims he wants to unify the living and the dead to remove the boredom from both states. Why die once, he jokes, when you can keep the party going forever? Behind the humor lies hunger. He has learned that memory sustains him. Lydia's return, her fame, her guilt, they feed him better than fear ever did. His chaos is not revenge but survival. He manipulates the miniature town again, expanding it to full scale until Winter River and its model BL. Lydia understands his logic. He cannot be destroyed because he is woven into their story. The only way to stop him is to rewrite the narrative, to remember him differently. It is an impossible task, but she has help now. Astrid sketches symbols while Delia, at last terrified, donates her art as raw material for a trap. The three generations align for the first time in years. Lightning forks across the sky, striking the old weather vane. The air inside the house tastes metallic as if charged with expectation. Even Beetlejuice pauses, savoring the suspense before his own joke lands. Winter River disintegrates into dream logic. Streets loop back on themselves, tombstones rise through asphalt, and shop windows display alternate versions of the onlookers. Beetlejuice moves through the chaos like a maestro conducting his masterpiece. Lydia and Astrid stand together in the attic, surrounded by candles, salt, and the beating heart of the model town. Delia chants directions from below, half artist, half exorcist. The ghosts that once haunted Lydia gather around, drawn by her courage. Beetlejuice. The energy crescendos. The attic shudders, the floor splinters, and the world seems to hold its breath. Lydia and Astrid take each other's hands, ready to face the ghost who made their lives both tragedy and farce. Just before the clash begins, the camera of the mind pulls back, leaving us suspended in that exquisite tension between laughter and fear. Beetlejuice Beetlejuice in its richest form is a story about inheritance, the way humor, trauma, and imagination pass from one generation to the next. Lydia learns that ghosts are not simply dead people but the echoes of choices we never stop making. Astrid learns that belief can be strength when tempered with love. Delia, ever dramatic, proves that art and madness are twin sisters who occasionally save the world. And Beetlejuice himself endures as a chaotic truth that the line between comedy and terror is where life actually happens. It is the space where grief learns to laugh and laughter remembers why it cried. The film leaves us poised in that uncanny balance, a reminder that the absurd is sometimes the only language grief understands. When the screen fades, the echo of Beetlejuice's laughter lingers, not as menace but as mischief, proof that stories like spirits never really die.